Hello everyone, Andrew here, and welcome to an all-new Donkey Kong Country project. I know there's a lot of people who have been waiting very patiently for Donkey Kong Country to once again return to my channel, and I thank you very much for that. So I think today is a good day to get back into it, and we're going to be doing that by reading Donkey Kong Country Rescue on Crocodile Isle, a book by Michael Tealgamemaster, I guess, and published by Troll. Not sure why that feels fairly fitting for this occasion, but yeah, I figured we'd give this thing a read. According to the back, it's Shiver me timbers! The evil Captain K. Rool has kidnapped Donkey Kong and taken him to Kremland's pirate haven on Crocodile Isle. Can young Diddy and Dixie Kong save their famous friend? Well, you know, see, that's the problem here. If he was a nobody, he wouldn't have been victim of this crazy kidnapping crime. But, you know, with fame, you gotta play the game. So it looks like it's up to Dixie and Diddy in a crazy, like, 63, I think, page adventure to go and rescue him. But thankfully, there are pictures along the way, so, you know, that's gonna cut out some of the pages. And if we look here, chapter 1 starts on page 3, so it's pretty much like we're already halfway there. I figure this might probably take about an hour or so. You know, hopefully we can get like a page done per minute at the very least. And yeah, we're gonna see just what the novelization of everyone's favorite Super Nintendo game looks like. And I can tell you, I've done my research. And starting off here, the first chapter is actually somewhat faithful to the instruction manual story, which is quite nice. And also, as you can see, someone's incredible artistic skills are going to be featured throughout. This was a second-hand book. You can tell it's kind of chewed up a little. Found at that ye old Value Village for like, you know, $2.99 or something. It looks like back in the day it only cost you Americans $3.50. So quite the steal for such an incredible piece of literature. I can just imagine the book reports that were probably written on this back in the day. Can you believe it? So yeah, we're just going to enjoy this and see what's, you know, the plain black and white text interpretation of a classic video game is. So with that, we got 1. Donkey Kong let out a big sigh. Doesn't get any better than this, he thought to himself. He stretched his hairy arms over his head, wriggled his toes in the white sand. The beautiful blue ocean of Donkey Kong Island lay before him. It was a bright sunny day. Donkey Kong was relaxing on a beach chair under the big umbrella, sipping cold banana milkshake. Okay, I gotta make sure I'm reading this properly here. It's a little bit of an awkward angle. If you saw all the stuff in front of me, the camera, the microphone, just bear with me here. Sipping the cold banana milkshake, he watched the white-capped waves curl into tubes, then gently roll towards the shore. Nothing can possibly ruin a day this perfect, he thought out loud. As it turned out, he couldn't have been more wrong. Just as he was starting to doze off, he was startled by a sharp whack on the side of his chair. "Who's there?" he yelped, leaping straight up into the air. When he landed, he was face to face with Cranky Kong, his grandfather. "Just what in monkey business do you think you're doing, you big lazy ape?" shouted Cranky. "I was trying to have a relaxing day at the beach," replied Donkey Kong, irritated at the interruption. "And I was doing it too, until you came along." And again, this beautiful interpretation of Cranky Kong waking up DK. You know, I love it. I love it. And just wait, I'm sure there's going to be much more where this came from. And it should be noted, I have not read this myself, so we're both in this for the ride together here. "Why, when I was your age," Cranky began, the way he began most of his speeches to his grandson, "I didn't take any days off to hang around the beach. It was work, work, work. Rescue, rescue, rescue." Another "when I was your age" speech, thought Donkey Kong, sighing heavily. "Why don't you go bother Diddy or something?" he said aloud after a few moments. "Diddy?" snorted Cranky, with a disgusted moan. "Ha! These days he's always off somewhere with that girlfriend of his. But don't worry, Mr. Relaxation, I can take a hint. I know when I'm not wanted." Cranky stormed away, muttering things like "day at the beach" and "big lazy ape" as he headed for home. Donkey Kong just shook his head, settled back into his beach chair. Then he dozed off in the afternoon sun. Later, as night began to fall, Diddy Kong and his girlfriend Dixie Kong returned to Donkey Kong's treetop home. They found Cranky and his wife, Wrinkly, pacing the floor, fretting. "What's up, Cranky?" asked Diddy. "You look even more worried than you usually do." "Don't get sassy with me, you young whippersnapper," shot back Cranky. "I told your pal Donkey Kong that nothing good would ever come from date at the beach? But did he listen? No. And now this. Now what? Asked Diddy. What's going on? What Cranky is trying to tell you, Diddy, replied Wrinkly, is that Donkey Kong never came home from his day at the beach. He always home by dark. Cranky's getting worried. I think I was perfectly capable of saying that myself, thank you, snapped Cranky. Of course you were, dear, said Wrinkly. She had learned long ago how to handle Cranky when he was in a bad mood, which was most of the time. Well, what are we standing around talking for? Asked Dixie. She still was not used to Cranky's personality. That's just what I was going to say, chimed in Cranky. If anybody around here would let me get a word in. By the time Cranky had finished talking, Diddy and Dixie were already out the door, on their way to the beach. Cranky and Wrinkly followed close behind, with Cranky complaining the whole time. The four Kongs soon arrived at the spot where Donkey Kong had spent the afternoon. Look! Shouted Diddy, racing through the sand. He pointed at something lit up by the last fading rays of the evening sun. It's Donkey Kong's beach chair, and it's been smashed to pieces! Cranky held a section of the chair in his hands, shook his head. I knew it! I just knew something bad would come of this! Not far from the beach chair, Wrinkly found Donkey Kong's broken sunglasses. A bent pole was all that was left of his beach umbrella. Look at these! Cried Diddy excitedly, pointing to the sand all around the spot where Donkey Kong's smashed up beach chair stuff had been. Footprints! Hundreds of them! Big, gnarly, lizard-shaped footprints! That can mean only one thing! The Kongs looked at one another, then they said out loud the thing they dreaded most. Kremlings! The Kremlings were a race of nasty lizard-like creatures that lived in Donkey Kong Country. They were pirates by trade. They lived only to steal Donkey Kong's precious hoard of bananas. They had been successful several times before. Each time the Kremlings had taken Donkey Kong's bananas, he had set off on a quest to retrieve them. The last time had been a real adventure, and Diddy had joined Donkey Kong in the successful effort to get the bananas back. But this time, it appeared that Donkey Kong himself had been taken by the Kremlings. Look what I found! Shouted Dixie. Her words. They obviously knew what they were doing to some degree. With the red hat, and, Dixie's looking pretty accurate there. I guess they could have just copied the front of the book. Cranky looking pretty old man-like. And I like, the night sky there. Nice touch. Nice touch. So where were we here? Her words broke the worried silence that had descended on the Kongs. A note half buried in the sand. Here, listen to this. As the others listened carefully, Dixie read the note. To the yellow-bellied, land-lubbing Kong family. Ha ha! We got the big monkey on Crocodile Isle. If you want him back, you scurvy dogs, you'll have to hand over the banana hoard. The note was signed Captain K. Rool. The Kongs stared at one another in stunned silence for a few seconds, absorbing the meaning of the note. Then Diddy spoke first. Rool, he snarled. Our old enemy. That big boss Kremling has stolen Donkey Kong's bananas before. Now he's got Donkey Kong himself. I guess we have to give Rool the bananas if we ever want to see that lazy ape again, said Cranky with a sigh. Diddy was shocked. After all the trouble we went through last time to get them back, he gasped. Well, blasted baboon bottoms, exclaimed Cranky. What else can we do? We can rescue Donkey Kong, of course, said both Diddy and Dixie at the same time. Again, beautiful artistic interpretation of the events. Alright, already up to page 10. What have we been recording for, like 10 minutes-ish? Looking pretty good. Then time to make sure the camera's actually turned on. This would totally be the moment when I realized it wasn't. Alright, everything looking good for 2. Rescue? Whined Cranky. Shook his head again in disbelief. Who in the name of monkey madness is going to do that? What is he, playing RuneScape all of a sudden? I am, said Diddy. Donkey Kong would do the same for me. I'm going to Crocodile Isle. If you're going, Dixie said to Diddy, then I'm going with you. Guess I can't just let you two young whippersnappers race off by yourselves, said Cranky. Well, don't worry, I'll take you to Crocodile Isle and get that good-for-nothing lazy grandson of mine back. Gee, Cranky, it's not that we don't want you to come, began Diddy. But, well, haven't you had enough adventures for one lifetime? I mean, you've been rescuing since you were young! Cranky finished Diddy's sentence. Meaning now I'm too old, huh? Come on, Wrinkly, let's go home. You two youngins can go off the dang fool adventures all by yourself. Why, you won't last 2 days out there, you hear me? I mean, if anyone takes 2 days to beat Donkey Kong Country, it'd take them too long if you ask me. Not 2 days! Cranky stormed off. Frankly followed close behind. I was trying not to hurt his feelings, said Diddy, after Cranky had gone. I guess I didn't do a very good job. You think maybe we should let him come? Asked Dixie. Nah, replied Diddy. He just keep talking nonstop, telling us how we're doing everything wrong. We're better off without him. Come on, let's go get some rest. We have a long journey ahead of us. I think it's like, it's time for a nice nap before, rescuing your kidnapped friend there. The following morning, Dixie and Diddy met at the docks on Donkey Kong Island, where they arranged to borrow a small sailing ship. They loaded it with supplies. I think we have enough food to last us until we reach Crocodile Isle, said Diddy, when he had finished loading the final crates. And I packed a bunch of barrels in case we run into any of those Kremlings, added Dixie. I'm sure we will, Dixie, said Diddy. He thought briefly about his other encounters with the Kremlings, but quickly shook those unpleasant memories. The two friends set sail for Crocodile Isle. By the time the sun had risen fully, Diddy and Dixie could no longer see the docks of Donkey Kong Island. A shimmering blue sea stretched out before them in every direction. Diddy used his compass and sea charts to navigate. Dixie thought about the huge task that lay before them. What are the Kremlings like? She asked. Never seen one, just heard stories. They're big and green and slimy and scaly, replied Diddy. They're mean, but they're dumb. Real dumb. That's what we have going for us. We have simian sense, as Cranky would say. Dixie laughed. Do you think we should have let him come along? She asked. She was not sure they had made the right decision. She didn't have to think about it for long, though. Before Diddy could respond, one of the crates on board began to rock from side to side. Then the top popped open and out jumped Cranky. Let me come along, he yelled. No one lets me do anything. I've been doing what I wanted since I was knee-high to a salamander. Not about to stop now. Funny considering the game I beat earlier today. Cranky! Diddy and Dixie both exclaimed at once. How did you... Easy, Cranky interrupted. For a monkey with simian sense, I stuck into one of your crates about an hour before you showed up at the docks this morning. I wasn't going to argue with you yesterday about coming along, but I think you'll need my years of experience if you're going to get Donkey Kong back. Diddy laughed. He felt he could handle this mission without Cranky, but part of him was glad to have the old monkey along. Welcome aboard, Cranky, said Diddy, patted the old ape on the back. I'm glad you're here too, added Dixie. Cranky nodded. Another adventure, he sighed. Did I ever tell you about the time I rescued 14 apes from a burning tree? Cranky launched into one of his many stories. Diddy and Dixie settled back. They knew they had no choice but to hear him out. As the day wore on, the small ship made its slow progress across the ocean. But towards sunset, the sky began to darken. Inky black clouds moved in, quickly overhead. The wind whipped the ship's sails. Looks like a storm's coming, said Diddy. Doing the Cranky voice for Diddy. Diddy's getting old by this point, too. Interrupting Cranky's tale of how he had single-handedly saved an entire continent. We'd better... Before Diddy could finish his sentence, the storm struck with terrible fury. Rain lashed the deck of the tiny ship. The strong gale tossed the apes around until it finally pitched them overboard. Down they plunged into the cold green sea. They struggled to hold their breaths. Then, as if things weren't bad enough, from out of nowhere came two menacing faces. Lockjaw the piranha and Shuri the starfish. Wow, this is like throwing the enemies from the series in there. Two of the Kong's underwater enemies, wow, it even points it out in the text itself, had been following the ship. They were hoping for an opportunity like this. Lockjaw opened up his big mouth, huge mouth, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth. Shuri spun like a buzzsaw, both headed straight for the Kongs. Suddenly, a streaking blue flash appeared from the briny green depths. Cry of, "On guard!" And hey, there they are again. Pretty accurate colors. I'm not sure that, not really on the front. So, again, they knew what they were doing when they colored in the photos here. So kudos to them. So where did we leave off? On guard! Oh, on guard! Stunned Lockjaw and Shuri, stopping them in their tracks. It was On Guard the Swordfish, a friend of the Kongs. On Guard had helped Donkey and Diddy on their very first adventure together. So I'm so confused. It mentions that, that was their first adventure, I guess, in Donkey Kong Country 1. But then it mentions somewhere that they had fought the Kremlings and saved the Banana Horde on several occasions. So, inconsistency here. Here, take these, said On Guard. On Guard speaks now, everybody. Giving special breathing barrels to Diddy, Dixie, and Cranky. The barrels could be used to breathe underwater for unlimited time. So, I mean, when you play the game, you never question why a character can just breathe underwater for as long as they want. But they felt the need to explain that in the text, which is kind of funny. It's like, I mean, if this is at your local library, you can't have none of that nonsensical fiction where characters can just magically breathe underwater in there, I guess. On Guard charged at Lockjaw, crashing into the piranha's huge bottom lip with his long, sword-like jaw. Lockjaw's mouth slammed shut, and he swam away, yelping in pain. Shuri spun his pointy little arms at On Guard, who swung his jaw sideways at the starfish. It was like a batter swinging at a pitched baseball. On Guard smacked Shuri hard. Starfish shot off like a line drive, disappearing into the murky deep. "Are you guys alright?" asked On Guard. "Yes, thanks to you," replied Diddy, as he breathed through the barrel. "How did you know we were here?" "Word spreads quickly around Donkey Kong Country," explained On Guard. "Everyone heard about what happened to Donkey Kong. Those two pests were following you. I decided to keep a close eye on them." The Kongs remained underwater, breathing through the special barrels. When the storm had passed, On Guard led them back to their ship. It was a bit waterlogged, but otherwise all right. After bailing the water off deck, the Kongs bid farewell to On Guard. "Good luck with the rescue, and keep the breathing barrels. You may need them again," said On Guard. Then he leaped from the water in a perfect blue arc and dove beneath the waves. "Thank you, On Guard," called Diddy. "Thanks for everything." The sea returned to its calm state, and the Kongs proceeded on their voyage. As the sun began to set, a large island came into view on the horizon. "Crocodile Isle ahead!" shouted Dixie. She pointed to the sinister-looking island, which grew larger and larger as the tiny ship approached. Diddy noticed that the closer they got to the island, the stronger the currents were getting. Soon the tides were very strong. The ship could no longer be steered. "I guess we're gonna have to land somewhere. I guess we're gonna have to land wherever the current takes us," said Diddy. "I don't like it," said Cranky, moaning. "Not one bit." Cranky had good reason to be concerned. The powerful currents soon pulled the ship right into Crocodile Cauldron. Wow, so just completely skipping, the whole Gangplank Galleon. So Gangplank Galleon, is that the ship that they took over to Crocodile Isle then? Or is that K. Rool's old ship from the first game? I was always under the impression it was like the ship from the first game that you fight on the end. But the fact that they just kind of skip over the whole boat here. Yeah, interesting anyway. This was a rocky cove filled with boiling hot lava. As soon as the ship entered the bubbling cove, it burst into flames. "What do we do?" shouted Dixie. "Stay on the burning ship or jump into the scalding lava." 3. The flames on the ship climbed higher. They soon crept up the masts and spread across the deck. "What do we do?" repeated Dixie. "We're doomed," groaned Cranky. "Maybe not," said Diddy. He had spotted something in the burning lava. "Well, if you have a plan, speak up," shouted Cranky. "Don't wait for an invitation to arrive in the mail." Let's see, if they'd used email, it would have been there by now. "Look at the lava," began Diddy. "You see all those crocodiles poking their heads up?" Dixie and Cranky nodded. "I think we can use those croc heads as stepping stones to make it to land," Diddy explained. "So we become crocodile snacks instead of crispy critters?" whined Cranky. At that moment, the deck of the flaming ship split in two. There was no more time for discussion. The Kongs had to act. Diddy, Dixie, and Cranky leapt from their burning ship just as it disappeared into the boiling lava. Each Kong landed on a different crocodile. There you go. I didn't color too much of this one. That's a pretty involved photo, though. Pretty neat. So, I mean, Cranky is like legit along for the adventure, which is kind of funny. Definitely an interesting interpretation of Donkey Kong Country 2 game. Diddy and Dixie hopped from Croc-head to Croc-head, moving towards the shoreline of Crocodile Cauldron. "It's working," said Dixie. "The Crocs are letting us use their heads as stepping stones." "How are you doing, Cranky?" asked Diddy. Turning around, he spied Cranky lagging far behind. The older ape was having trouble keeping his balance as he moved from one Croc head to the next. "You two go on," shouted Cranky. He was struggling to keep his footing. "I don't think I'm gonna make it." Cranky stumbled and started to fall towards the lava. "Cranky!" Diddy cried, looking on helplessly. Suddenly, a green blur of wings swooped down and grabbed Cranky just before he hit the boiling lava. "Squawks!" Diddy declared happily. It was the parrot who had helped Donkey and Diddy on their other adventures. Again, plural. It's only the second adventure. Squawks deposited Cranky safely on the island. A few minutes later, Diddy and Dixie joined them. Are you alright? Are you alright, Cranky? Asked Dixie as she leapt from the last croc heads ashore. I told you it was a dang fool plan, hopping on crocodile heads, complained Cranky, but he was actually quite grateful for the rescue. The last time I saw you, you were holding I said, so I mean, there's Squawks, makes perfect sense. Kind of spoils the story when you look at the picture first, I guess, but I appreciate the additional art. Not gonna see that in the game. What is this? The last time I saw you, you were holding a flashlight. So just, again, confirming that the adventure before this is Donkey Kong Country 1, despite the fact that they keep using adventures plural. To light the way for Donkey Kong and me, Diddy said to Squawks. My power has grown since then. I'm stronger now. This was as close to saying thank you as he would ever come. Wait a second. No, my power has grown since then, replied the parrot. I can now lift monkeys and transport them through the air for short distances. Good thing too, said Cranky. This was as close to saying thank you as he would ever come. Where is Donkey Kong? Asked Squawks. Diddy quickly explained what had happened. He told Squawks the purpose of their quest. They may have taken Donkey Kong to Gangplank. So Gangplank Galleon comes after Crocodile Cauldron in the book? Well, that's a kind of a problem there. Not even accurate to the game at all. And it's weird that they would flip that around. But I guess for story's sake, it's working so far. Squawks guessed. That's K. Rool's old pirate ship. See, I wasn't crazy. It washed up on shore and is no longer seaworthy. It's a logical place for Rool to be hiding Donkey Kong. Even though the ship doesn't travel the seas anymore, it's still manned by a scurvy Kremland crew. Then that's where we'll start, said Diddy. Kongs thanked Squawks for his help. The parrot gave them directions to Gangplank Galleon. Then he flew off, wishing them luck. The three Kongs followed Crocodile Isle's craggy coastline. The red, yellow, and orange lava soon gave way to shimmering blue water. Now this looks like a coastline ought to look, said Cranky. He felt much calmer now after their rude welcome to the island. A short while later, Diddy spotted a pirate ship, floating in the beautiful blue-green cove. That's it, he said. Gangplank Galleon. I recognize Rool's ship from my first banana rescue mission with Donkey Kong. Hard to believe that such a pretty place could be crawling with Kremling, said Dixie. Come on, let's see if we can sneak on board. Diddy, Dixie, and Cranky made their way to the ship. They kept low and hid behind the shoreline growth as they scurried along. When they reached the ship, Cranky looked up at the gangplank. How in the name of monkey madness are we gonna get on board? You're reusing your lines now, Cranky. We can't just stroll up and say, hey there, Kremlings, we're here to rescue our friend. I've got an idea, said Diddy. Follow me. He slipped into the water and swam towards the far side of the ship. Dixie and Cranky followed. Now I'm wet, complained Cranky as he followed the others. Shh, they'll hear us, warned Dixie. Cranky grumbled to himself, but continued to swim. When they reached the far side of the ship, the three Kongs climbed up and peered over the railing. The deck was crawling with Kremlings. So that's what they look like, whispered Dixie. Yuck! We need to distract their attention so we can slip on board, said Diddy. He was enjoying his new role as leader of the little group. I think we need your ponytail here, Dixie. Dixie had a long ponytail that she could use in several different ways. When she attached a barrel to it and spun it around, it acted like a slingshot. It could toss a barrel great distance, and by spinning her ponytail like a helicopter blade, she could fly for a short period of time. Here, said Diddy. He handed Dixie a miniature exploding barrel. A miniature exploding barrel? Like, why miniature? I mean, they're all the same size in the game. Fling this to the other side of the ship. With any luck, all the Kremlings will move to that side when it goes off. I mean, you might also, blow the entire ship up with Donkey Kong on it, should he be there. But, we'll not consider that possibility. Dixie wrapped the end of her ponytail around the small barrel. She began to swing the ponytail around and around. I don't know why I'm reading that with that voice. When she had gotten up enough speed, she flung the barrel. It landed on the opposite side of the ship. The barrel exploded with a dull thud, sent a fine spray of water high into the air. Panic broke out on the deck. All the Kremlings raced to see what had happened. Here's our chance, said Diddy. Let's go. In the midst of the pandemonium, Diddy, Dixie, and Cranky climbed over the railing. They snuck on board and began their search. They had covered almost the entire lower deck. With no luck, when they heard a strange squish clomp, squish clomp, squish clomp sound. It was coming closer and closer. "Someone's coming," whispered Dixie. "Let's hide." But it was too late. Clomp the Kremling had gotten his name because of the sound he made with his one peg leg when he walked. The squish was the sound of his other slimy reptile foot. Now he turned the corner and stood face to face with the Kongs. "Monkeys!" he shouted. "Monkey! Hey everyone, we have monkeys on board!" "Time for action!" cried Diddy. He went right into his cartwheel attack, sending Clomp spinning head over feet. When Clomp landed, his peg leg got stuck in a hole in one of the deck's planks. "Hey, no fair!" Clomp complained as he tried in vain to free his leg. "One down," said Diddy, "about 1,000,000 to go." Kremlings swarmed the lower deck as the battle raged. Dixie flung exploding barrels at a group of charging Kremlings. They took the creatures down like bowling pins, all except for one Kremling named Kaboing, who bounced around on spring-loaded legs. Kaboing bounced up to a high ledge near the top deck. He was just in time to miss the impact of an explosion. "Ha!" he taunted from above. "Missed me!" "Time for a little teamwork, Dixie," said Diddy. "I'm with you," Dixie replied. Diddy leaped up onto her shoulders. She tossed him towards Kaboing. "Here, you drop this," said Diddy, handing Kaboing a barrel. "So, that's Kaboing?" I mean, Kaboing's the one with, like, the spring that it bounces on, right? This guy just has, like, 2 peg legs. And also, I like how well, they didn't color in this photo. They got a little less effort as the story goes on, it would seem. Tossed the barrel toward him. "Here, okay. Thank you," replied the Kremling, as the barrel blew up in his face. "Okay. I told you that Kremlings were dumb," said Diddy when he landed next to Dixie. Suddenly, a Kremling named Klinger dropped down. Using a rope from above, he landed right next to Cranky. Well, maybe that's who this guy's supposed to be. "Hey, I got the old monkey," Klinger shouted as he wrapped his arms around Cranky. "Who are you calling old, Krembum?" said Cranky. "I'll show you!" He smacked the Kremling on the knuckles with his cane. Kremling let go, yelping in pain. Cranky sidestepped Klinger's next attack and struck him on the back, knocking the Kremling overboard. "That'll teach you to call me old," said the elder Kong. Diddy, Dixie, and Cranky were in high gear. They cartwheeled, barrel-tossed, ponytailed, and cane-thumped their way through the Kremlings. I like how it's confirming that, because even in Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, he kind of plays like Scrooge McDuck in DuckTales, I think, where you bounce on his cane. So this literally predicted that Cranky would be a playable character in Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. I mean, playable-ish. He joins Donkey Kong from time to time. Where are we here, though? Soon they had defeated all the pirates on board Gangplank Galleon. "Wow, great teamwork!" exclaimed Diddy, exchanging a high five with Dixie. "Nice work, Cranky," said Dixie. "I've got a few good moves left in these old bones," bragged Cranky. "You youngsters didn't do so bad either." The Kongs resumed their search of the ship, but soon realized that there was no sign of Donkey Kong anywhere. "All that for nothing?" said Cranky dejectedly. "Wait!" shouted Dixie from across the deck. "I found something!" And again, just to check to make sure everything's still recording, looking good. This is the point when you'd realize it wasn't. It's like, well, I guess we gotta read all of that again. But it looks like we're about halfway, I would think. So we're getting there. 4. Diddy and Cranky joined Dixie. She was standing in front of an open pirate treasure chest. The decaying chest was filled with old papers and cobwebs. Dixie had been rummaging through the papers. She was looking for some clue as to where the Kremlings might be holding Donkey Kong. What she found was a pirate map of the island. "A map!" exclaimed Diddy, eagerly looking over the yellowed piece of paper. The map showed all the various locations of the island. Most important, it showed the way to Captain K. Rool's keep. This heavily guarded fortress was K. Rool's lair, his headquarters. It was the center of his operation of banana thieving, and now Kong napping. "K. Rool's keep," said Diddy, pointing to the drawing on the map. "Look at that place. Even the picture is scary." "That must be where K. Rool's keeping Donkey Kong," Dixie exclaimed. She was beginning to feel like they hadn't hit a dead end after all. "That place looks like a monkey barrel full of trouble to me," said Cranky. "Besides, how in the name of simian sense are we gonna get inside, if we even make it there?" We'll have to figure that out when we get there, replied Diddy. This didn't make Cranky feel much better. With a tiny kernel of hope and a growing sense of dread, the three Kongs left Gangplank Galleon. They headed out to find K. Rool's keep. Dixie acted as navigator. She read the map and led the way. The trail indicated by the map took them away from the coastline into the dark heart of Crocodile Isle. A narrow path led through a thickly wooded area. The foliage grew more and more dense as they traveled inland. Soon, they were in a deep forest filled with towering trees that blocked out the sunlight. What a dark and gloomy place, observed Dixie. Ha! You call this dark? Snorted Cranky. Why, I was once in the forest so thick that the sun didn't make it through the treetops for the whole 3 whole days. Yep, 3 days. I stayed black as night, round the clock. Cranky continued to tell stories of his glorious past. Dixie, however, noticed the ground was getting softer, wetter, and more squishy. Be careful, she said to the others. Feels like we're heading into a swamp. Checking the map, she added, we must be getting close to Krem Key. That's the biggest swamp on Crocodile Isle. Moments later, the Kongs reached the edge of the Krem Key. Half-sunken, Kremling pirate ships jutted out of the green, murky water. Insects skimmed across the top of its soupy, slimy surface. Snakes slithered along the swampy shore. Yuck! Dixie exclaimed. What do we do now? The key extends as far as we can see. There seems to be no way around it. And I guess we're going through it, replied Diddy. Through it! Bellowed Cranky. How are we gonna manage that? We salvaged the underwater breathing barrels that OnGuard gave us, said Diddy. We can use them to cross the key underwater. I mean, they just say all these, like, disgusting things about it. It's like, we can just jump in and swim through it. Why not? Dixie leaned over, cupped her hands, and brought up a handful of the okay, well, see, I mean, I gotta give the book credit. Every time I'm like, hey, wait a minute, you know, it proves me wrong, which is nice. A handful of the slimy green slop. She opened her hands. The swampy soup oozed between her fingers and returned to the surface with a sickening plop. There's only one problem, Diddy, she said, wiping her hands on her vest. How will we see where we're going through this stuff? We could get lost, be swimming around in there forever. Diddy sighed. He knew that Dixie was right. He felt stumped. We could use some help, he said softly. Ooh, more photos. So they literally have to, you know, put these barrels on their faces. Like they can't breathe underwater, everyone. They need these barrels there. Just don't play the game. It will prove it otherwise. Help, said a thin voice that seemed to be coming from the key. Help, it repeated. Who's there? Diddy asked bravely, looking around for the source of the voice. Over there, Diddy explained. She pointed to one of the sunken pirate ships. Look! Diddy and Dixie spotted a bright light flashing through the water near the ship. The light rose to the surface, and the Kongs saw that it was extending from the head of a large brown fish. He popped up out of the water and shone the beam right at the Kongs. Who are you? Asked Diddy. Glimmer, replied the fish. Glimmer, help. Monkeys, light. What's he saying? Muttered Cranky. I think he's offering to help us, replied Dixie. He'll light our way across the key. Follow, said Glimmer, and he turned and dove back into the water. The Kongs placed their breathing barrels in their mouths. They jumped back into the thick, disgusting water. Everything was dark, green, and brown. It was impossible to see a thing until Glimmer flashed a light in front of them. Following Glimmer's narrow beam, Diddy, Dixie, and Cranky slowly made their way across Krem Key. They were almost to the other side when... Again, Neeks underwater? Does that ever happen in the game? Like, that's kind of odd. And is this also, like, spoiling what's going to happen on the next page? Maybe. So let's find out. Suddenly, a group of huge rats, there you go, appeared from out of the murky depths. They were swimming right for the Kongs. What are they? Asked Dixie. Neeks, replied Glimmer. Neeks. Underwater. Rats. The Neeks closed in on the little group. They bared their sharp teeth. Dixie whirled her ponytail at top speed. When the Neeks came close enough, Dixie's twirling ponytail slammed into several of them and sent them spinning away. Cranky took care of the last few Neeks with his cane, and the Kongs finished their journey across the key. On the far side of the swamp, they emerged from the water covered with slime. This is really gross, said Dixie. At least we made it across, replied Diddy. He thanked Glimmer. The strange fish with the helpful light turned and disappeared silently into the green, soupy swamp he called home. After a quick rinse in the nearby waterfall, the disheveled Kongs continued on their journey towards K. Rool's keep. The thick forest soon gave way to a more open landscape. In the distance, the Kong spotted something that looked like an old city, but as they moved closer they realized that what they were approaching was not a city at all. It was a rundown amusement park. The sign read, "Crazy Kremland," with its fences. Within its fences, Diddy, Dixie, and Cranky saw rides, carousels, a midway filled with games of chance and skill, and a huge Ferris wheel covered with brightly colored lights. There was also a giant roller coaster that was obviously in need of repair. "Would you look at this place," said Dixie, as they entered the park. "Who would have thought that Kremlings were interested in having fun and going on rides?" I thought all they were interested in was stealing our bananas," replied Diddy. "Things aren't always what they seem," added Cranky nervously. "Let's be careful. This could be a trap." "You should listen to the old monkey," said a voice from behind. The three Kongs spun around. They found themselves face to face with a massive, muscle-bound Kremling known as Cruncha. "You monkeys are coming with me!" "It's action time again," shouted Diddy. He pulled out an explosive barrel and tossed it at Cruncha. The huge Kremling simply caught it in one hand. The barrel exploded, but Cruncha just laughed. He wiped his hand on his shirt. "You can't hurt me," Cruncha bragged. "No one can." "We'll see about that," cried Dixie, taking up the challenge. She leapt onto Diddy's shoulders, and he launched her right at Cruncha. She hit the Kremling head first in the chest with her ponytail spinning at top speed, but she just bounced off, landing at Diddy's feet. "That's never happened to me before," said Dixie. She was a bit shaken up. "I told you so," Cruncha said, laughing at the attack. "Well, how about this?" yelled Diddy, going into his cartwheel attack. This was his most potent weapon. Diddy cartwheeled right into Cruncha, but the powerful Kremling just reached out and grabbed Diddy's ankle, stopping his spin. Then he tossed him back towards the others. "He's right," said Diddy, getting to his feet. "Our attacks against him are useless. They just make me mad," snarled Cruncha. "No more playing. Okay, guys, let's take him." A group of Kremlings stepped out from behind the tent. They fell in behind Cruncha. "Party's over, monkeys," said the muscle-bound leader. "Time to come with us." 5. "Run!" shouted Diddy. He hoped that this would buy them some time to come up with a plan. Dixie kept up with Diddy, who ran at top speed. Cruncha and the other Kremlings gave chase. Cranky moved as quickly as he could, but he lagged behind the two younger monkeys. "Come on, Cranky! Hurry!" called Diddy, as the older Kong struggled to keep up. "I never agreed to run!" complained Cranky. He was huffing and puffing as he pushed himself along. "That was never part of the plan!" Diddy and Dixie turned on to Crazy Kremlin's midway. Booths were set up along both sides of the long alley. A few minutes later, Cranky showed up. "I can't run anymore! I have to rest! You two go on without me!" "Don't be silly, Cranky," said Dixie. "We're not gonna leave you." Then Dixie heard the Kremlings approaching. "You've got to do something! They're almost here!" "In there," said Diddy. He pointed to one of the game booths. The Kongs scrambled over the front ledge of the booth. Then they ducked down, out of sight. Along the back wall of the booth was a series of large plastic monkey heads with huge open mouths. On the ledge above, the Kong sat a collection of water pistols. "This must be one of those games where you have to shoot a stream of water into the monkey's mouth to win a prize," exclaimed Diddy. "I guess they don't like monkeys very much, huh?" asked Diddy. "Dang right," said Cranky. "They've been bothering us for years. Still, I had no idea they were targets in their own shooting games. That's what downright insulting. Why, Shh, Cranky," interrupted Diddy. "I hear them." The Kremlings rounded the corner and turned onto the midway. "I could have sworn they were coming down here," said one of the Kremlings. "Look!" shouted Cruncha. "There they are!" The three Kongs froze in fear. Cruncha was hovering right over them, standing in front of the booth. Diddy, Dixie, and Cranky pressed their backs into the ledge that just barely hid them. "That's not them, Cruncha!" The Kongs heard another Kremling say. "Those are plastic monkeys from the water shooting game." "Oh," replied Cruncha, who was as dumb as he was strong. "Thought their mouths looked kind of big." "We better search each one of these booths," said the other Kremlings. "Might as well start here in this monkey squirting booth." Realizing that they were about to be caught, Diddy leaped up, he grabbed one of the water guns, and started to spray the Kremlings. The startled lizards were blinded for a moment by the stream of water. The three Kongs climbed from the booth and were back on the run. Near the end of the midway, Dixie spotted another booth. In this one, rocks were supposed to be thrown at a line of monkeys climbing a plastic tree. The monkeys in this booth looked much more like real monkeys than the ones in the water squirting booth. This gave Dixie an idea. The Kongs jumped into the booth. They climbed onto the plastic tree, holding as still as they could. When the Kremlings arrived, they stared at the tree full of monkeys for several tense minutes. "We're going to get away with this," thought Diddy. He strained to hold his pose. The tension was broken by Cruncha, who picked up one of the rocks. "Hey," he said, getting distracted from the chase. "I've never played this game before. I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna go for that old monkey. He looks like one of those Kongs we were chasing." The Cruncha fired a rock at Cranky, hit him right on the head. "Yow!" yelped Cranky as he fell from the tree. "This is a good game," said Cruncha. "Those fake monkeys are very lifelike. They even have sound effects." Diddy and Dixie jumped from the tree to see if Cranky was alright. "It just grazed me," whispered Cranky. "I'm fine, but it looks like we were caught." "Maybe not," said Diddy. He quickly grabbed one of the stuffed Kremlings that were given out as prizes. Then he put on the carnival's Barker's straw hat and found under the counter. Slipping up to Cruncha, he handed him the stuffed Kremling. "Nice shot there, son," exclaimed Diddy. "Here's a gift for the little Kremlings at home. Care to try another throw?" Diddy handed Cruncha another rock. He then slipped out the back of the booth. Dixie and Cranky followed close behind. "Hey, boss," said one of the other Kremlings. "Not now," snapped Cruncha. "Can't you see I'm trying to win another prize?" "But boss, those weren't fake monkeys," said the Kremling. He was growing frustrated with his leader's thick-skulled ways. He knew that Cruncha was in charge of his muscles and his invincibility, not for his intelligence or leadership qualities. "Those are the Kongs we were chasing." It took another few seconds for this concept to sink in. Then Cruncha got angry. "Nobody makes a fool out of Cruncha," he bellowed. "It's too late to say that," said the other Kremling under his breath. The Kongs had already slipped from the midway. They were wending their way through the crazy Kremlin, trying to find a way out. "Let's take the secret underground passageway," said Cruncha. It was one of his rare good ideas. The Kremlings made their way to a large rock not far from the midway. Cruncha used his tremendous strength to lift the rock. Beneath it, a tunnel led into the ground. The Kremlings hurried into the tunnel. Diddy, Dixie, and Cranky had come to a group of buildings right in the middle of the amusement park. "I don't see any exits," said Dixie. "We seem to have lost the Kremlings, but now how do we get out?" "You don't get out," boomed a deep Kremling voice from behind them. The Kremlings had reappeared on the other side of the underground tunnel. It led out through a false tree trunk right next to where the Kongs were standing. Diddy pointed to a sign on one of the buildings. "In there!" he shouted. "Quickly!" The Kongs dashed into the building marked House of Mirrors. Once inside, they found themselves in a baffling maze of glass. I believe that's a maze of, yes. Wow, okay, so this chapter has really just been like, we got a whole game here, but we're gonna make this crazy Kremlin part go on for like 20 pages and have nothing to do with anything that happens in the game? Sure. Why not? Let's stay together, Diddy said. "If we split up, we may never find each other again." They started to make their way through the passages. All the Kremlings had to do was wait for the Kongs to come back out of the building, but Cruncha was so furious at having been fooled that he dashed into the House of Mirrors. He ordered his troops inside with him. It looks like we got some, mirror smashing action going on the right side there. Within seconds, the Kremlings were hopelessly lost inside the glass maze. "I see one!" shouted Cruncha. He spotted Diddy just a few feet in front of him. "I've got you now, monkey!" he raged. Cruncha charged at Diddy. Only it wasn't Diddy he was racing toward. It was Diddy's reflection in a mirror. Cruncha hit the mirror full force. It shattered into 1,000 pieces. "Missed me," taunted Diddy. He stuck out his tongue and wiggled his tail at Cruncha. This made Cruncha even angrier. Again, he charged at Diddy. Once again, he smashed into a mirror image of Diddy, shattering the glass. Total confusion broke out. The Kremlings stumbled around the labyrinth of mirrors. They bashed into glass and each other. Diddy, Dixie, and Cranky slowly and carefully found their way through the maze and quietly slipped out the back door of the building. The Kongs raced off and began looking again. And again, there's that image there. Looking again. Wow, this chapter goes on. Yeah, so looking again. Because I'm waiting for this chapter to finish because I need to plug in the camera. But like, when did this chapter start? Like all the way back on like page 35. And here we're almost 10 pages, which I guess, it's not that long, but it seems long for this book anyway. for a way out of the park. Good move, Diddy, said Dixie. They could be in there, bumping in the mirrors for hours. On the other hand, began Cranky, pointing behind them. Look! Cruncha and the other Kremlings were emerging from the House of Mirrors. They seemed more determined than ever. How did they get through the labyrinth so quickly, wondered Diddy. They were totally lost in there. Inside the House of Mirrors, Cruncha had grown frustrated. He had smashed every mirror in the building. When he finished, he was standing in a big open warehouse with shards of mirrored glass piled up around him. On the floor, steaming mad, Cruncha then led the Kremlings out the back door to continue the chase. Cranky was getting worn out from all the running and chasing. I'm not gonna make it, he told Diddy and Dixie. You two had better leave me. Don't be ridiculous, Cranky, Diddy replied. We came here together, and we're all gonna leave together. We've gotta find someplace for the rest. But the Kremlings are closing in, said Cranky. He was huffing and puffing out of breath. There, shouted Dixie. We can hide in that old abandoned roller coaster. Just ahead of them loomed the rickety-looking wooden roller coaster. The Kongs ducked inside the tall tower housing the ride. They sat down to catch their breath. The Kremlings, however, were not far behind. They soon burst in on the Kongs. You monkeys just keep making me madder and madder, said Cruncha. So now it's time to put an end to you. Diddy, Dixie, and Cranky quickly climbed into the lead car of the roller coaster. You'll have to catch us first, Diddy challenged. He pulled the lever that started the ride. He then broke the lever off so the Kremlings couldn't shut the roller coaster down. The little car containing the Kongs started moving along the tracks, heading upwards. Follow them, said Cruncha. The Kremlings jumped into the individual cars lined up along the tracks. One by one, cars filled with Kremlings traveled up the tracks, right behind the Kongs. When Diddy, Dixie, and Cranky reached the top of the roller coaster, their car hesitated for a moment. Then it started the long plunge down. Hang on, yelled Diddy. The car began to pick up speed. Looking behind them, the Kongs saw car after car of Kremlings. Each one reached the top and then zoomed down after them. Ahead of the Kongs was an even more frightening sight. The end of the tracks! The twisted metal rails just stopped dead in midair, hundreds of feet above the ground. And there you go, chapter 6. So before we get on with that, let me, the drink is probably also in order here. And I'm also gonna grab ye old charger here. For this intermission, looks like we're just over halfway. Again, I'm not sure how many chapters it is, but I can't imagine it's too much longer. Well, I hope you're enjoying the story so far. This is just a fascinating take to see on the Donkey Kong Country series. I've also never plugged in the camera while it was on before, so we're gonna see if this breaks everything. Well, it seems to be happy with that, but alright. Now let us get back to where we were here. Oh, spoilers. Sorry about that. I ruined the ending of Donkey Kong Country, everyone. And again, 63 pages. I did flip to the end to just see how many pages it was. So it looks like we have about 20 to go, plus pictures. Again, I like how all the effort was put into, the coloring the pictures earlier on. And then, clearly they had moved on to other things. 6. What do we do? Yelled Cranky. We're going to crash. What about your helicopter spin, Dixie? Asked Diddy. He had to shout over the noise of the speeding car. They hurled closer to the end of the tracks. Think you could fly us out of here? I don't know if I can carry all of us, Dixie replied loudly. I've never tried it. At that moment, their car left the tracks. Time to try it, Dixie, called Diddy. The car began to plunge to the ground below. It's our only chance! Dixie sent her ponytail into its helicopter spin. Diddy held on to her ankles, and Cranky held on to Diddy's. The three Kongs lifted off into the air just as the car crashed below them. I can't hold all three of us up, Dixie cried. She started to glide towards the ground. We're going down! Diddy, Dixie, and Cranky came coasting down to a rough but safe landing. They tumbled over one another in the pile. Then they came to a stop. Is everybody alright? Asked Diddy. Yeah, interesting interpretation of the roller coaster ride there on the right. If monkeys were meant to fly, we would have had wings, whined Cranky. I guess you're okay, Cranky, said Diddy, smiling. How about you, Dixie? I'm fine, replied Dixie. At least my helicopter spin slowed our fall. Which is more than I can say for our Kremling friends, said Diddy. Look! The Kongs watched as the roller coaster cars containing the Kremlings went flying off the end of the tracks, one by one. They crashed to the ground below. Well, that takes care of them, said Dixie. Now let's get out of this crazy place. With the Kremlings no longer chasing them, the Kongs continued their search. They soon found their way out of crazy Kremland. Short while after leaving the park, they came to another deeply wooded area. According to the map, said Dixie, we're in Gloomy Gulch. K. Rool's keep is just on the other side of these woods. But it says here that these woods are haunted by spirits. Haunted? Scoffed Cranky. Don't tell me you youngins believe in ghosts. That's just plain silly. You really think so? Asked the thin, veiled voice that sounded like the wind. Of course I think. Cranky stopped short. Who said that? I did, replied a shadowy figure with glowing red eyes. The figure hovered above them. Well, who in the name of blasted baboon bottoms are you? Demanded Cranky. I'm Cloak, the figure said. A high, shrill laugh filled the woods. And I am Cackle, echoed a second voice that seemed to come out of nowhere. Ha 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 ha! Ooh! We are the spirits of the woods! Spirits my tails, shouted Cranky. There's no such thing! The shadowy figure of Cloak disappeared. Then the woods grew darker. Although it was the middle of the afternoon, it was soon as black as midnight. Cackle laughed evilly again. This time his laugh was accompanied by an eerily howling sound. Let's get out of here, said Diddy, trying not to sound frightened. Maybe those spirits are real, added Dixie, also trying to remain brave. I still don't believe it, said Cranky. We've got a mission to finish. Let's get a move on. The three Kongs did their best to follow the path, but it was nearly impossible to see where they were going. Unnatural darkness now filled the forest. Diddy pulled out a flare barrel and ignited it. Oh, that was a TNT barrel. Run! The glow of the burning barrel lit the way. The Kongs were soon back on the path leading through Gloomy Gulch. Like, I love how there's all the liberties given to the writer. They can just introduce any barrel they want, air barrels, flare barrels. You wonder what kind of process, they go through writing a book based on a video game, and clearly, taking liberties in the proceedings, but yeah, it is what it is. And look how short this chapter was, again, compared to like page 60 at 44 rather to, 48. Much shorter than the last one. A huge rock suddenly rose into the air in front of them. Cackle laughed loudly. So loudly that they had to cover their ears. The floating rock landed right in front of Diddy. Startled him and caused him to drop his flare. This place is giving me the creeps, said Dixie. Come on, Diddy responded. Let's keep moving. He picked up the glowing barrel, and the Kongs made their way around the large boulder. A strong wind whipped up. It bent the trees almost to the ground and blew out Diddy's flare. The group struggled to move forward through the darkness. Up ahead, shouted Dixie. Look! Diddy peered up the path. He saw sunlight streaming into what looked like the end of the woods. Just a little bit farther, he urged the others. The Kongs pushed on towards the light. They were soon at the edge of the woods. They stepped from Gloomy Gulch and suddenly it was daytime again. The sun shone brightly. The fierce winds were gone. Behind them, the woods were still covered in darkness. Before them rose a huge, forbidding fortress. K. Rool's keep, said Diddy in a hushed voice. We made it. But now comes the hard part, moaned Cranky. Getting Donkey Kong out of there. I like how Gloomy Gulch was literally like 4 pages long. I mean, not even, because the end of, rather the beginning of the chapter is still, them leaving crazy Kremland. So, whatever reason, I guess they had to pad the story a bit, right? To, make it worthwhile. And they just decided that the amusement park was the best place to do that. I've, watched other shows or consumed other media that have hilarious shenanigans going on at the boardwalk. It must be, an easy spot to, to add some padding there. But all right, with that, on page 49, we have 7. Keeping low but moving swiftly, Diddy, Dixie, and Cranky made their way to the base of the huge fortress. There were several entrances to K. Rool's keep. Each one was guarded by 2 Kremlings. How do we get past those guards? Whispered Cranky. I'm working on it, replied Diddy. Over the course of their journey, Diddy had come to think of himself as the leader of the little team. His earlier adventures with Donkey Kong had been learning experiences, but this rescue mission had given him the confidence he needed to feel like a true leader. Diddy now faced the greatest challenge of his young life, to get into the heavily guarded fortress and escape safely with Donkey Kong. Diddy's thoughts were interrupted by the loud laughter of the guards at the nearest entrance. So what's K. Rool gonna do with that big monkey he's got chained up at the top of his keep? Asked one guard. He was laughing at Donkey Kong's predicament. I think he's waiting for those other monkeys too. Bring him all their bananas, replied the second guard. Although why he wants bananas is beyond me. I can't stand the things. Yeah, I always wondered that too. So, you know, again, the book answering the real questions. I can't even complain. I can't stand the things. Give me strawberries for my cereal any day. So Donkey Kong's chained up at the top of the keep, whispered Dixie from their hiding place nearby. At least we know where he is. This is going to be tougher than I thought, said Diddy. We're going to have to make it all the way to the top, but I've got an idea about how we can begin. Diddy explained his plan to the others. Then Cranky stepped out from their hiding place. Hey you! He shouted. Kremland guards! I'm here to deliver the bananas for K. Rool. They're right over here. One of the guards stepped away from the entrance. He shuffled over to Cranky. Oh yeah, monkey? Where are they? He asked. Over here! Come on, said Cranky. He led the guard farther away from the entrance. How far is it? Asked the guard. Not far, replied Cranky. Just follow me. Cranky led the guard to the spot just out of view of the entrance. He stopped under the large tree. Do I get it now? Asked the guard. You betcha, replied Cranky. Now! Diddy dropped from a tree branch just above the guard. He pounded on the guard's head with and yeah, there you go. Again, you know, all the liberties that they're taking here with the game, and adding Cranky into all this is just so weird. It's like I love it. It's just such a weird reimagining of the Donkey Kong Country story. I mean, I could have cut out some of the, you know, amusement park shenanigans. It seems like they're gonna cut some of that out and add more to Gloomy Gulch, but the author did what they did. Again, Michael Tealgamemaster. I'd love to hear your process and how you turn the game into a book. A double jump move that Donkey Kong had taught him and knocked out the guard. Meanwhile, back at the keep's entrance, Dixie sprang into action. A few moments after the first guard had disappeared from sight, Dixie flew at the remaining guard. Her ponytail helicopter spin attack hit him from behind. The unsuspecting guard tumbled to the ground. Seconds later, Diddy and Cranky returned. They quickly tied up the guard with vines and put a gag in his mouth. Nice work, Dixie, said Diddy. He grabbed the guard's keys. Time for the fun to begin. The Kongs entered the keep. They found themselves in front of a huge stairway that seemed to rise forever. Peering up the steps, the Kongs saw level after level. Oh yeah, there's all the different levels. We got Windy Well, and Castle Crush, and Clapper's Cavern. I'd love if they actually started like referencing the names. That'd be hilarious. Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! Okay. It sure looks like a long way to the top, said Dixie. Then let's get moving, replied Diddy. He was trying to keep everyone focused. The first level they came to was Chain Link. Like, they're actually referencing levels from the game, except Chain Link Chamber's like way up there, so, you know, inaccurate to the game, but I'll give it a pass. Chain Link Chamber. In order to proceed any higher, they had to climb a 100-foot-high chain link fence. No problem for monkeys like us, said Diddy. The three Kongs scrambled onto the fence. But when they were about halfway to the top, a Kremling named Cannon appeared. He prepared to fire his huge gun at the climbing Kongs, like incorporating the different enemies and stuff. It's pretty good. Nobody gets past Cannon. You know, there's the Cannon's catchphrase right there. You know, it's been a mystery for years just what his catchphrase was. Watching him in the game, shooting cannonballs down at you, I always wondered to myself, if he could speak, what would he say? But now we know. Nobody gets past Cannon. His first cannonball ripped a hole in the fence just above Diddy's head. Spread out, said Diddy. He can't get all three of us at once. Using the old, Mario Party 3 tactic for that one minigame. I like it. Using their natural monkey agility, Dixie, Diddy, and Cranky moved sideways along the fence. They split up, taking 3 separate paths. Cannon continued to fire, but the Kongs managed to scramble around each hole he made. They soon met at the top of the fence, and were able to move on to the next level. Back onto the stairs, they passed an innocent-looking barrel. Suddenly, a Kremling called Clobber burst out of it. Clobber slammed into Diddy, then bounced off the wall. Next, he slammed into Dixie. She only managed to keep her balance by grabbing onto the stair railing with her tail. As Clobber prepared to attack Cranky, Diddy set off a smoke screen barrel. The stairway filled with thick haze. Like, it's okay, he just like pulled a smoke screen barrel out of somewhere, I guess. How about Clobber? You know, which kind was it? Was it the one that just kind of bumps you around, I guess? Or was it the one that steals your bananas? Maybe, like, literally steals the life right out of you? Let's see how they handle this. Hey, shouted Clobber. I can't see anything. That's the idea, said Cranky, as he tripped Clobber with his cane. The Kremling rolled down the stairs and disappeared from view. Everyone okay? Asked Diddy when the smoke cleared. Fine, replied Diddy. How many more darn levels are there in this place? Moaned Cranky. This game's too long. I want a shorter game. Well, back in my day, the original Donkey Kong only had 4 levels. 3 if it was on the NES. I don't know, said Diddy. I'm sure it isn't going to get any easier. The 3 Kongs sped up the stairs. At the next level, they were confronted by 2 of the most dangerous Kremlings yet. Crook with his rocket hook hands, and Cutlass with his 2 razor-sharp swords, stepped out to block their way. You look like you could use a shave, old monkey, said Cutlass. He swung his right-hand sword straight at Cranky's chin. Cranky reacted quickly, lifting his cane to block the blow. The sword missed him, but sliced his cane in 2. Crook fired one of his rocket hooks at Dixie. She spun her ponytail and lifted herself into the air. The steely point of the hook passed just below her feet. It struck in the far wall behind her. Next, Cutlass swung his sword at Diddy. Diddy used his superior jumping ability to leap above the arc. The sword made in the air. He landed on Cutlass's head, temporarily stunning the Kremling. It's funny because I never used to really notice as a kid that Diddy was the more agile and even higher jumping, higher bouncing Kong, but Unveiled taught us that. And apparently if I just read this book, I would have also realized that he was the better jumper. Meanwhile, Dixie pulled Crook's hook from the wall. She began a duel with the crafty Kremling. The sound of clanging metal rang out as the hooks clashed. Crook was stronger than Dixie, but her monkey agility enabled her to block his blows and counter with some of her own. While Cutlass was still dazed, Diddy spun into him with a cartwheel attack. It sent the Kremling... Yeah, here's the photo here. We got Diddy and Dixie fighting off the Kongs. Yeah, pretty neat, actually. And again, page 54, less than 10 to go, everybody. Flying. Cutlass reached his arms out to stop himself from slamming into the wall, but he was still holding his swords. They hit the wall points first and stuck. Try as he might, Cutlass could not free his swords. They were deeply embedded in the wall. With no weapons to protect himself, the cowardly Kremling fled. Dixie and Crook locked hooks in the battle of strength. Dixie strained with all her might, but the stronger Kremling was starting to push the hook she was holding back towards her. Oh, Diddy and Cranky now joined her. Each one grabbed hold of Dixie's hook. Using their combined strength, the Kongs began to swing Crook in a circle. Picking up speed, they spun the Kremling around until he was off his feet. Now, yelled Dixie, let go! The three monkeys let go of the hook at the same time. Crook went flying over the stair railing to a level far below. Now that's what I call teamwork, said Cranky. He was proud to be part of this feisty little band. The Kongs had just one more level to get past before they reached the top, a level known as Toxic Tower. Toxic Tower lived up to its name. As soon as they entered the large stone silo, green, smelly slime started pouring through crevices in the floor. The room began to fill up with the slime, like a swimming pool filled with water. Climb, shouted Diddy. Climb as fast as you can. With the poisonous green goop spreading to within inches of their feet, the Kongs climbed up the side of Toxic Tower. At the top was a small door. Diddy opened the door. The 3 friends dove through just as the green slime caught up with them. Getting to their feet, they realized they had just made it to the top of Captain K. Rool's keep. There in front of them, bound in chains, sat Donkey Kong. So I like how they invented, the way to destroy Bowser in Super Mario 64. Miyamoto clearly read this book and was then inspired to, make Bowser's fights in Mario 64 based on that. So this book gets all the credits. But here we go, probably what is going to be the final chapter. With already, a look here. I like how, again, they skipped forward just to color Diddy's vest and, a part of his hat. Not his whole hat, but that very specific part had to be red. And, but good coloring, though. Sometimes you see, people color in, all different directions, but this person was very consistent. Gets an A+ from me. All those title pages I had to draw back in the day. I'm a title page expert now. But with that, let us begin the final chapter. Chapter 8. Diddy! Dixie! Cranky! Exclaimed Donkey Kong. He struggled around the chains that held him. You came all this way to rescue me? Of course, DK, said Diddy. Sounded more grown up than Donkey Kong had ever heard him sound before. After all, you do the same for us. And you came too, Pops, added Donkey Kong. Oh, what do you think? I'd let these whippersnappers get all the glory for rescuing you? Snorted Cranky. Captain K. Rool stepped into the room. He was seething. No one had ever made it all the way to the top of the keep before. But despite his role as leader of the Kremlings, K. Rool was basically a coward. "I'll destroy this whole place before I let you free the big monkey," he shouted at them. Then he set off a smoke bomb and climbed a rope ladder to the roof of the keep, where his croc plane was waiting. "Don't worry about me," Donkey Kong told his... Yeah, so there you go. So you got the DK all in chains there. K. Rool looking a bit like, huh? And then, you know, again, Diddy with Dixie there. And, you know, Cranky Kong, like, barely shoved into the side. Friends, you've got to stop Rool. He has enough firepower on that croc plane to blow up this whole fortress. If he gets the plane airborne, we're all finished. "Cranky, you stay here and set Donkey Kong free," ordered Diddy. "Come on, Dixie, let's go get Rool." As Diddy and Dixie scrambled up the rope ladder to the roof, Cranky lectured Donkey Kong. "Didn't I tell you that no good would come from your lazing around on the beach all day?" he began. "When I was your age, I never took a day off." While Cranky talked, he used small explosive barrels to keep Donkey Kong to break Donkey Kong's chains. Donkey Kong rolled his eyes. He wondered if he might not be better off staying where he was for the rest of his life, rather than endure another of Cranky's lectures. Diddy and Dixie reached the roof just in time to see K. Rool's croc plane take off. "We're too late," shouted Diddy. The plane rose into the air. Any second now, he's going to start bombing the keep. I mean, he's going to also take out all of his Kremlings, which were on there as well. If he had said, you know, he was going to go bomb Donkey Kong Isle or something, you know, that would have been a thing. But, you know, he's going to, like, take his whole island down. Anyway. "Let's use my helicopter spin," Dixie suggested. She revved up her ponytail. "But," Diddy started to protest. "I know I couldn't lift all three of us," Dixie explained, "but I might be able to fly with just you and me." "Let's go," said Diddy. He put his arms around her waist. The two Kongs lifted into the air. "It's working!" cried Dixie excitedly. "Follow that croc," ordered Diddy, holding on tight. A few seconds later, they caught up with the plane. Quickly, so Dixie is now Tails. That's what I'm getting from this. Good, fascinating. A few seconds later, they caught up with the plane. Quickly sliding the door to the cockpit open, Diddy and Dixie leaped inside, which is funny because in the European version, they actually added that it looks like they broke through the door, where in the North American and I believe also Japanese version, there's just like, it's like they opened the door. "Too late, monkeys!" shouted Rool. "My bombs will destroy the keep, and your two friends with it." Yeah, and like thousands of your followers as well. But before Rool could hit the release lever to drop the bombs, Diddy returned to Rool's smoke bomb favor by setting off a smokescreen barrel of his own. How many of these things does he have? The cockpit filled with thick gray smoke. The Kremlin couldn't find the bomb release controls. Rool stumbled blindly around the cockpit of his croc plane. Diddy decided to put him out of commission with a cartwheel attack. When he slammed into Rool, the Kremlin hit the partially open cockpit door. K. Rool fell out of the plane and plunged into the ocean below, landed with a huge splash. Diddy and Dixie looked down. They saw the group of gray shark fins circling K. Rool. Then the evil Kremlin leader disappeared. The smoke in the cockpit finally cleared. Diddy sat down at the controls. He had been taking flying. Oh, there you go. Look at that. Flying the it's like a helicopter. I mean, it was more like an airship, but they call it a plane here. Flying lessons from Funky Kong. Getting ready for Diddy Kong Racing, I see. The best pilot on Donkey Kong Island. Diddy guided the plane safely to a landing on the keep's roof. Donkey Kong and Cranky were waiting. "Nice bit of rescuing, Diddy," said Donkey Kong. He and Cranky climbed on board. "Thanks, DK," said Diddy, beaming with pride. He piloted the croc plane off the roof and set course for Donkey Kong Island. On the way, Diddy and Dixie filled Donkey Kong in on all the details of their adventure. "I had faith in the two of these youngsters all along," said Cranky. "Of course, they never would have made it and passed the first Kremlings if it hadn't been with my help." "You never change, do ya, Pops?" asked Donkey Kong. "Why should I?" shot back Cranky. "Why mess with primate perfection?" The others all laughed and settled in for the flight home. The end, I'm assuming. Wow. There you go. And I guess here... Oh, okay, so there was, I guess, a Donkey Kong book, and then they made another book before they made this book. So I guess that's why the adventures was always plural. But there you go. That is Donkey Kong Country Rescue on Crocodile Isle. thank you all. If you stuck with that, if you actually listened to that, I hope you somewhat enjoyed it. But I know, seriously speaking, that there are a lot of people waiting for more Donkey Kong Country content on my channel. And as I mentioned in another video, there is an anniversary coming up in regards to Donkey Kong Country on my channel. And I do have a true Donkey Kong new series prepared for that moment. So again, I appreciate your patience and thank you for that. And hope that this did not, turn you off too much. From waiting for more Donkey Kong. But happy April Fools, everyone. Hope you have a great day. Again, that wasn't too bad of a story, and it was kind of fun, seeing the book's interpretation of it with Cranky Kong in there and the absolutely beautiful, detailed, and colored pictures along the way. It's hard to beat that, but with that, again, thanks, everyone. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you have a great day. Take care, and see you later.